The history of money and wealth is a tale prone to repetition. Earlier, I spoke with Mike Maloney, founder of GoldSilver.com, and he recently created a video series, The Hidden Secrets of Money, and this is all to explain monetary history, wealth cycles, and the financial crisis. So here's a clip.
Once you see where we've come from, you can get a much clearer understanding of how the 7 stages of empire are playing out right now.
The thing that amazes me is how history just keeps on repeating and repeating and repeating, and we never learn from all of our stupid mistakes.
I first talked to Michael Maloney about why he created the series, and here's what he had to say.
What stuck out at me was that every 30 to 40 years, the world has a new monetary system. We're coming up to one of these shifts in monetary system right now. The dollar standard is actually falling apart rather quickly. And my company, Hidden Secrets of Money, the series that we are producing, has a mission to enlighten the world that maximum prosperity can only be achieved through individual freedom, free markets, and sound money.
Now, I want to get back to this waves and cycles talk in a minute, but first I want to pull up a graph. You talk about the unprecedented expansion in base money, and we have a graph here of U.S. base money since the 1960s, and since the recession we have seen a massive expansion, but it's not just happening in the U.S. If we take a look at other countries, for example, Canada, we see the same thing, and this is true in Australia, South Africa, Singapore, the list goes on. So have we seen anything like this on a global scale before? Are we in uncharted territory?
No. Before, when this has been done, there was always some other currency that you could run to. There was a neighboring country that wasn't inflating their currency supplies on this suicidal scale. This is a global event. And this, you know, back in 1971, well, let me back up a little bit further.
Sure.
Before World War I, we had the classical gold standard, where a treasury would have a certain amount of gold and they would issue that many claim checks on it. And the claim checks were the currency. That's what circulated. The gold was in the treasury's vault. The combatants in Europe all went off of the redemption rights, off of that gold standard when World War I broke out. When World War I ended, they cobbled together a very poorly designed monetary system, a gold exchange standard that was an interwar standard that went until 1944. And that one wasn't going to work by the end of World War II, and so they had an emergency meeting at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, and came up with the Bretton Woods system, which was also a poorly designed, man-made system that started falling apart in the late 60s, the early 70s, and August 15th, 1971, Nixon took us off of that, the last vestiges of a gold standard, and the dollar standard began worldwide. When he severed the tie between gold and the U.S. dollar, he severed the tie unwittingly. He began this grand experiment that has been proven to always fail. He put the entire world on fiat currency system, and it has never worked throughout history. One of the reasons that this poorly designed system is lasting longer than the rest is simply because you don't have a competing system in a neighboring country. You don't have an asset-backed currency right next door that you can run to when countries start inflating their currency supplies, like I said, on this suicidal scale.
Yeah, the U.S. dollar is definitely the reserve currency, for now at least, and it's also used to price oil. And how does this affect the ability of the U.S. to export our inflation to the rest of the world?
Well, you know, the U.S. has that exporting inflation to the rest of the world, that is also a label for a wealth transfer that comes toward us. We have been able to tax the rest of the world from 1944 until today, and tax it on an ever-increasing level. When we dilute our currency supply by printing more units of currency, it devalues the existing units of currency, and inflation respects no borders. It doesn't just devalue the dollars that are inside the United States, it devalues the dollars that are outside the United States. And we're the only country on the planet where the majority of our currency resides outside of our own borders. So when we print excess dollars and do deficit spending, it devalues the dollars that other countries are holding, transferring purchasing power from them to us. And it's one of the reasons that we've been able to live this standard of living that we've enjoyed since World War II. And, you know, some people think that Americans are just smarter or harder working or better than anybody else, and we're the same as everybody else on the planet. We just had this lucky series of accidental events of countries having wars not having war on our soil, and this chain of events that led us to where our currency was the world reserve currency.
Sure.
And then politicians for the past decade or so have treated this privilege of having the world's reserve currency as their birthright, and they've abused it to the point where other countries are abandoning it, and they're abandoning it at an ever-increasing rate. The Bank of England has made a swap deal with China. Australia has made a swap deal with China. So they're doing direct settlement without converting into dollars first when they do wire transfers. Russia and China, India and China. Now there's going to be a BRICS bank. The list just goes on and on and on. And every week there is another nail in the coffin for the global dollar standard. And this is what our series, the second episode of Hidden Secrets, is about. You can see these different monetary systems. Right. And I believe that it's extremely urgent. If anybody wants to preserve or increase their wealth, they need to learn about this as quickly as possible. All this stuff has happened before, but never globally.
Yeah, India has actually been buying oil from Iran in rupees because they've been shut out of the market by the U.S. But I want to get back to war. In your most recent video, you described the pendulum between the quality of money and the quality of the currency, the quantity of the currency. So does war always have to play a role in this process?
Well, you know, during periods of economic strife, what governments usually try and do is take the population's eye off the ball. It's the government that is at fault for creating this economic strife by causing wealth transfers through things like deficit spending and all of these programs. When things get bad, if they can tell the population that you've got to be a true patriot, and it's those other people's fault, the people on the other side of this imaginary line that we've drawn on the globe, and rally the population behind the politicians that are trying to hang on to power. And so, yeah, war is very often something that is there to basically take people's eye off of the ball and keep them from seeing what is really happening.
Yeah, one of the things we're looking here at, we look at every day, is the Federal Reserve, and we talk about Ben Bernanke, who's going to replace him. It seems to be almost a false dichotomy between Summers and Yellen, but I wanted to get your opinion on gold manipulation. Gold and gold leasing are actually a single line item, and what is this about?
First I want to address Bernanke, Summers, and Yellen.
Sure, okay.
All of this is just a bunch of noise that takes your eye off the ball. I try to ignore all of the short-term noise. There's a lot of news media stuff that keeps people from looking further into things. Now, this gold manipulation is one of the examples of looking further into things. Central banks are accounting for the gold that they supposedly have as a single line item, sometimes called something like gold and gold loans or swaps where applicable. Well, gold loans and swaps means that they've loaned it out and they're owed gold back, so that's a receivable that's kept as a single line item that is supposed to be an asset. And you can't, this is illegal accounting, it's morally corrupt. But what it does is it provides an opportunity. Whether they're doing this or not, I hope that they have done this, and they've done it on a massive scale, simply because that is the reason that gold is so severely undervalued right now, and that's a guarantee that one day it's just going to the moon, because they have to reacquire that gold from the open market. So that means if it's been leased out, and it's out in the open market, and they have to reacquire it as part of their currency reserves, then the price has to go up as they buy that gold back from whoever has it.
Yeah, and it looks like Germany certainly wants a bit of their gold back from the Federal Reserve. You've described something, and I'm not going to quote you, but it's a threat of deflation followed by a helicopter drop, followed by more inflation. Can you give your outlook for us? Do we necessarily have to end up with hyperinflation given our current monetary situation?
Yeah, well, my book was written from 2005 to 2007. In it, I said that Ben Bernanke would be our next Federal Reserve chairman. And I had read many of his papers, and I read his book, The Essays on the Great Depression. So I knew his mindset. And I said that there would be the threat, an event that would be the threat of deflation. That was the market crash of '08.
Right.
To which Ben Bernanke would overreact with a helicopter drop. That was the bailouts and the QEs. He's doing exactly what I predicted, which would cause an inflation, which we've seen where he reflated the real estate and the stock markets right now. Then I said that there would be a true deflation, a contraction of the currency supply, a monetary deflation. Prices follow the the Austrian definition of inflation or deflation, or the Milton Friedman's definition, an expansion or contraction of the currency supply. And that would just scare him to death, and he would overreact. Well, it might be Summers or Janet Yellen. It really doesn't matter. These people are all